Am I the asshole for cutting my wife off from our finances because she wouldn't stop ordering craft supplies? I'm Dan, 41, and I've been married to my wife, Marcia, for 12 years. Marcia is 39, and over the past few years, things between us have become more complicated, especially when it comes to money. Marcia doesn't work. She hasn't in years, and while she says it's because of her minor disability, it's hard for me to fully accept that explanation. It's not that she can't work, but she constantly complains about feeling exhausted and in discomfort. 5 years ago, after several arguments and attempts to get her to consider even part-time work, I gave up. The discussions always ended in her getting defensive, claiming she wasn't capable of working, and me feeling like I was walking on eggshells. The idea of her having a job is now a closed chapter in our lives, and I've come to accept that I'll be the one financially supporting us both indefinitely. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind providing for my wife. That's part of our commitment, and I want her to feel secure. But what started as Marcia having a harmless hobby has now spiraled into something I never saw coming. It started small. She would buy crafting supplies once a week. A couple of skeins of yarn here, some fabric there, a new roll of vinyl. Nothing too crazy. At first I thought it was a good thing. It gave her something to do, and I knew crafting brought her some joy. But over the past few years, her spending has become more and more reckless. What used to be a once-a-week indulgence turned into 3 times a week, and now it feels like I can't go a single day without seeing a new box on our porch. Every day there's something new. Cardstock, yarn, vinyl cutting supplies, buttons, beads, you name it. Our closets are bursting at the seams. We have an entire room that's more like a craft store than a spare room. It's overflowing with unopened packages, and most of it never even gets used. She moves on to something new before finishing any of the projects she starts. It's not even about the crafts anymore. It's just compulsive buying. Last month, it finally came to a head. I was going over our finances and saw that Marcia had spent $1,282 on craft supplies alone. That's not just a one-time thing. It's been creeping up like this for months. We simply cannot afford this. I make a decent salary, but I'm not wealthy, and this spending is putting real pressure on us financially. We're not in a position where I can cover her constant purchases and still manage to pay for the rest of our household expenses. I'll admit, I snapped. I'd been trying to talk to her for months, warning her that we needed to dial back on the spending, but nothing worked. So last Friday, I decided enough was enough. I pulled money out of our savings, completely paid off the credit card, and then canceled it. Then, I took all the money out of our joint account and transferred it into my own personal account. Marcia found out when she tried to order more supplies. No surprise there. She texted me, confused, asking what happened. I told her flat out, she was cut off. I explained that I had paid off the card and shut it down because we couldn't keep hemorrhaging money like this. When I got home that evening, I was greeted by a scene straight out of a drama movie. Marcia was lying on the living room floor, claiming she had a full-blown anxiety attack because she had nothing to do. I stood there looking at her, trying not to let my frustration boil over. Nothing to do? We have closets full of supplies she's barely touched. I calmly told her she could start by using some of the materials we already had. The kicker? As I was talking to her, I noticed something unusual. She had taken the garbage out. I think it was the first time I'd seen her do it in over a decade. I can only assume she was trying to throw away the evidence of more craft supplies she'd somehow ordered. But at that point, I didn't even care enough to dig through the trash to check. Here's the thing, Marcia doesn't make any money with her crafts. She doesn't sell them on Etsy or at craft fairs. She doesn't even give them to friends. She doesn't have any friends. It's like she buys these things just to have them, maybe to feel productive for a moment, and then moves on to the next thing. The crafts themselves don't seem to matter. It's the purchasing that gives her some kind of satisfaction. All weekend she was furious with me. She didn't speak much, other than to complain that I was controlling and that she was bored out of her mind. She kept repeating that I didn't understand how much crafting helped her mental health, but at the same time she refused to acknowledge the strain this spending was putting on our finances, and on me. I get that she needs something to keep her busy, but does that really mean she has to drain our bank account to do it? And here's where I'm stuck. Was I too harsh? Should I have found another way to deal with this rather than cutting her off from the finances completely? I know it's drastic, but I didn't know what else to do. We're not wealthy. We can't afford for her to spend $1,200 a month on supplies that she's never going to use. I've tried talking, reasoning, and setting boundaries, but nothing has worked. Now, she's furious, and I'm left wondering if I went too far. Was what I did over the top? Or was it necessary for the sake of our financial future and my own sanity?